Okay, so again, welcome to the Virtual Admitted Student Day for Music Composition for the Screen at Columbia College Chicago. Quick rundown again of the presenters. I'm David Martz. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions. Kubale Uner is the Director of the Music Composition for the Screen program. Thomas Egensberger, Marissa Hickman, and Alex Ryak are all three current students within the program. So just a quick overview about Columbia. Columbia is an arts and media school located in downtown Chicago. It is really geared towards the creative to the arts and media students. So everyone at Columbia is doing an arts and media related field. 50% of the student identifies as a person of color. So really that is really reflective of sort of the commitment to diversity that I think that Columbia really strives for. We're in downtown Chicago, specifically in the South Loop. Columbia was founded in 1890 by two women, and it was actually an original secretary school. The current president is Dr. Kwang Woo Kim, who comes from a music background himself. And there are roughly 7,000 students at Columbia. Obviously, most of those are undergraduates, and graduates are anywhere from like 250 to 350 in any given year. That's across all different disciplines. This is a quick sort of campus map first of all, this is a picture of Buckingham Fountain, world famous Buckingham Fountain, which is literally right across the street from campus. If you can see my mouse here, this is basically where our campus is, right over here next to this building, or next to the left of the fountain. This puts it in like a top-down aerial view. So this is Lake Michigan over here. This is Buckingham Fountain that I was just talking about. And then you can see most of our campus is right here within a 2-block radius, east and west, and about a mile north and south. Your building is right here, and we'll get into that in a second. Your main building, there are several other buildings you might take advantage of, but your main building where classes are going to be most of the time is right here. On that note, let's talk a little bit about some key buildings at Columbia. So my office, as well as sort of the main administrative office of Columbia, is 600 South Michigan Avenue. That's home to the graduate school, School of Graduate Studies office, also Columbia Central, which is basically your records office and your student financial services office. And then the president's office are all in this building. And then about 4 or 5 blocks south is your building, which is 1014 South Michigan Avenue. That's home to the music department where majority of your classes will be. And Kubi can certainly go into detail about some of the specifics of that building or the facilities. And then I also listed sort of right behind your building, right over here, is the 1104 South Wabash building, which is home to the Cinema and Television Arts Department. So in any sort of collaboration you do with film students, you know, that might take place in this building, but it is just a stone's throw from your building. Another key building I thought I'd talk about really quickly is our new student center. This is a brand new multi-million-dollar building that has a lot of different things, from a food court to study spaces to a fitness center, exhibition spaces. Columbia, being an urban campus, somewhat lacks some common meeting spaces for all students to get together. And I think this building has really sort of ticked that box for a lot of students to meet, to exhibit, to study, you name it. One of the things I most like is the makerspace down here. That's open to all students. It's for, I mean, I know you're all musicians, and that's majority of what your craft is going to be, but if you're also a DIY crafter or other things that you need to fabricate or make, you can likely get that done in the makerspace. But this is just quickly highlighting our new student center.
Just, if I may add, there's also...
All right, that was my quick overview of campus and buildings. I'm gonna let Kubi take it from here and start talking about the curriculum.
Sorry, and if I may just quickly add to the Student Center, and a couple of our current students can speak to that too. There's actually rehearsal rooms in there that are completely soundproof, and that can be checked out at a moment's notice, and people have also used them as mobile recording spaces. Our curriculum is 2 years, and the one thing that sets us apart from pretty much every other program is that everything is prescribed. Everybody takes the exact same classes in the exact same order. which has to do with the fact that I found that the 2 years are barely enough to make sure that everybody leaves with the tools that they need to both build a long-term career that can sustain them as creative artists for the rest of their lives, as well as make money right away after graduation. Those are two separate goals that are somewhat related, but that really have to be tackled separately, because of course it doesn't help you if you have all the tools to build yourself as an artist and no way to make money in the field after you graduate. And vice versa, we're not interested in just creating people who are professional assistants for the rest of their lives. So we're really trying to do both. That takes a lot of work, and that's why our classes are pretty much all, they're completely prescribed. There's three, and is there a way to show, let's go to semester 3 and 4 real quick.
Sure.
But I wish we could look at that at one slide. What you'll see is I'll have David just sort of go back and forth between these two every 15, 20 seconds.
Sure.
What you see is there's three really spines that go through the 2 years in Chicago, semester 1 through 4. The first spine are the scoring classes, and that is, of course, where we do what we do, which is score to picture, score projects to picture. The two things that are special about us, and we've talked about this in our one-on-one interviews before, but I want to reiterate it, is we only work on full-length projects. Not necessarily, we don't necessarily complete every single cue in every single film, and certainly not in every single TV series, but we set it up so that you could. And the idea is to create a situation where what we teach and what we work on has everything to do with how it's done in the professional world. And if I may backstep, that is the main philosophy. The goal is, of course, to get you guys working right away after graduation while building your own long-term career. And in order to do that, we have found that the only way to get that done is to recreate the professional world as it is and is about to be as faithfully in our program as possible. And so in the scoring classes, scoring 1 through 4, we work on full-length projects, roughly 2 per semester, so a total of 8, plus a couple of small ones, under the guidance of the original composer. And that is also important, because if I could show you a cue for a James Bond movie and you could score it for me and I would have opinions, and those opinions would be rather useless, because this is not an art that has clarity. This is an art that is collaborative and context dependent. And so depending on who's the director and what the project is, what works and what doesn't work will be completely different, even if the picture doesn't change. Replace the director and the same cut will have a different score. And so, and that is also where the composers in residence come in, because of course, if I am only teaching my projects, then there is a limited breadth of types of projects and types of ways of scoring that you'd be exposed to. And that's why we have our composers in residence. So over the course of the 4 semesters in the scoring class alone, you'll be working with me plus 3 others on their projects. The second spine are the Media Music Tech Labs. They go through all 4 semesters, 3 semesters with Dan DeHaan and 1 semester with Matt Prock. And those are exactly that. They're about all the technology surrounding music for visual media. That goes beyond just DAWs and plugins. That goes to things like 3D audio, programming in Unity, so basic game programming, and of course the whole classic engineering knowledge, audio engineering knowledge. And that is more than just a lab where you pick up skills, because as you all probably know from your own experience, the tools make have a huge impact on the output, on what you create and how you think about creating. And so that is another reason why we cover such a wide range of tools in the lab, because it's not just knowing how to run Reaper, it's knowing what you can do with Reaper that you can't do with other DAWs, or what you can do with Ableton Live that you can't do with other DAWs, or how the different digital audio workstations compare to one another, and what that means for creativity. So it's both, again, short term, it's about being able to sit in front of any type of software and be able to run it. That'll get you employed in years 1 through 5 after graduation. But it's also long term, getting to know the tools, how do they influence how you work, how you think, and be able to choose freely what works for you or for the task at hand. And then the third spine that goes through all 4 semesters is the Screen Music Forum. That's a new addition, and the idea is to have a place where you catch all the things that are sort of on the side, peripheral, but incredibly important. Number one being contracts, business, networking, but also guest artists. Where do we put guest artists? And guest speakers, not just in film music, but of people like film editors, people like directors of photography, people like film producers to come in and speak to us. This is also the place, because as you can imagine, since all we teach is original works taught by the original composer, this Screen Music Forum is also the place where we make some room for repertoire. Talking about classic films or newer films that have an impact on our craft or on the craft of film or games or television. And then in the first year we have so that's the 2 spines, the scoring, 3 spines, the scoring spine, the tech spine, and the Screen Music Forum spine. And then in the first year we have the orchestration sequence taught by Kaz Boyle, who has been orchestrating for 15 years now for some of the biggest names in the business. Look him up on IMDb. I have a PDF to share with you guys with everybody's short bio too. And then the 3 short survey classes. And the survey classes are just that. They're to get everybody on the same page in terms of how does film production work, who are the people involved, what are the hierarchies involved, film and television, I should say. How does music in media work? Where does it live, and what are the implications? Money, tech, creative, who are the people involved, etc. And last but not least, in the second semester, Games, AR, and VR production survey. Again, how do games get made? How does AR get made? How does virtual reality get made? And what are the people involved, and what are the processes involved? We have a new faculty for that since last year, I believe, who I'm super excited about, because the first thing everybody does is create a game from scratch, not with tech. And then in the second year, the 2 big additional classes are the Music for Games, AR, and VR sequence taught by Joel Korlitz, who's a BAFTA nominee and an amazing composer. I'm really happy that he happens to live in Chicago. And our Conducting for Media sequence, which conducting is only about 1/3 of it. The rest is hardcore musicianship, sight singing, reading in different clefs, etc. It's kind of really the low-tech, old-school, not antidote, what do you call it, pendant to everything else that we do. And Thomas and Alex can speak to that in a minute, but I find it's extremely useful, and I found everybody's relationship to their own scores, to listening to live musicians and giving them feedback, changes massively through the course of that class. And then, of course, our semester in LA, we have just delayed it so that we can hopefully just go there in person. Normally, we would go down in early June and be done early July, 5 weeks. Now we're going in mid-late June and be done in mid-late August, again, 5 weeks. And that's, of course, career development. That's every morning, a class with almost all guest speakers. Um, we've had Thomas Newman. We visited Harry Gregson Williams. We've had Jermaine Franco come in. A lot of different people come in, but also, of course, a lawyer, agents, you name it. They come and visit us. Afternoon is the internships that we can talk about it in a minute, but it's basically we refer people to working composers or other fields, but most people want to intern with composers, and then they work for them weekday afternoons through the first 4 weeks of the semester in LA. And then the last week is all about the thesis. We are booked in the Fox Newman scoring stage again. We have a 50-plus piece orchestra, 6 hours to record, so everybody gets about a half hour with the best Hollywood players and some of the best in the world. The only ones that are even with them are the players in London. It's really unreal, even for me. I've done it many times. Every time you're in there, you go like, these are not humans. It's amazing. So that's the overview over the whole program.
Great. And again, any questions about curriculum, we can handle that in the Q&A portion. Now I want to turn to the current students. I asked each of the 3 current students to give me 3 tips or pieces of advice they would like to impart to any new incoming student, and I'm going to let them talk about them now. And I just went alphabetically, so we'll start with Thomas. Go ahead, Thomas.
Awesome. So yeah, so I actually have more tips than 3, but let's focus on the 3 for now. So number 1, stay true to yourself. Just be yourself. That's something I found being extremely useful to me. Being able to, especially with the program that allows for that to be the case, for you to be yourself, embracing your musical heritage too. And that doesn't just apply to international students. That also applies to domestic students who, the states are so massive. There's so many different states, so many different types of music in each of the states, different folk music, different everything. And I think it's really important to bring that to the table, and being able to have all those like visual experiences, and just living in a different country or living in a different state than you're in at right now. Being able to draw from that creatively is extremely important, and it's something I'm realizing more and more. For example, I actually recently started a sample library company with 2 of my buddies from the program as well, and thanks to our tech lab with Dan. We were learning all about context scripting and making our own contact instruments and things like that. And we all come from different backgrounds. Marlon, for example, comes from Toronto. He's half American, half Canadian. Dylan is from Texas, and I'm from Germany. So it's like a trio that you don't necessarily think of right away. But that's kind of the beauty of being so diverse in this college, being able to draw from all these different experiences. So I think that's a very important thing, to stay true to yourself and really embrace that. And then, yeah, the next 2 steps are kind of 2 quite obvious ones, but they are often neglected, and I've definitely neglected them before. Not so much now, but I've learned my lesson. Take care of your body. Like, that's just the most important thing, and that your body is not just your physical health, especially your mental health. And just eat well, drink well, and I don't mean alcohol, by the way. Although occasional beer or something, it probably won't harm you. And yeah, go outside. Like, that's super important. That's something I didn't do as much, and especially in my undergrad days and in my first year at Columbia as well. And it's hard sometimes, because we write so much music, and we're in our studios all the time, and um, we're not really doing much else, but we kind of neglect sometimes that we can actually go outside. Not so much at the moment, of course. I mean, there are things, going grocery shopping and stuff, but very important to take care of yourself and just treat your body too. Just good food, regular meals as well, not eat at crazy times. I mean, these sound like the most obvious things, but this really does help with creativity. And then number 3 is sleep. That's something I got more and more into this semester, this year, because the workload increases over the time, and that you're going to be here, and you're going to be working on a variety of amazing projects, and you just have to recharge, and you only recharge when you sleep enough. And napping and meditation is actually another way of really increasing your productivity. Recently, I've started meditating, and it's crazy what it does. It's really incredible how it improves your workflow. And sometimes, you know, taking a nap in the afternoon is not a bad idea either, even if it's just a power nap for 15 minutes. But that stuff really, really helps for productivity and for creativity. And so I think that's my main three ones. There's many other things, but I'm more happy to answer more questions if you guys have any. You can shoot me an email or like write me in the chat or something, and I'm more than
Yeah,
happy to answer those
and I'm
questions.
gonna let you. I'll let you think about what you. But when we get to Q&A, I'll let you expand on additional tips that you want to provide
Okay.
as well too. So, Marissa, your turn.
Yeah, so my first tip for you guys would be to be social. I mean, you can ask any one of my family members. I'm like one of the shyest people in the world, but for some reason, when I tell people that here, they just don't believe me. But what I was doing is really just kind of faking it, and all of a sudden, I'm comfortable around everyone that's here. And I think it's really important to not be afraid to introduce yourself, reach out to people, because you form a lot of connections that way. And this business is really a lot about networking. But also on that, it's just really important to have a good work work life and social balance. Because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I just felt like I don't know, like I need a drink today. I need a drink, so I'm gonna have a drink. But it helps, and you really have to take that time out for yourself, like Thomas was saying, and hang out with the friends you make here, and just vent to them if you need to. We're all going through the same program. We all know how intense it is. It helps to talk about it and just like take that downtime. I'd say that's really, really important. And also with that, I'll say, like, as an example, just my first year, I've picked up 2 short films and a video game. And I would have never gotten those projects if I didn't go to these filmmaking meetups and I wasn't, just going up to people and introducing myself and getting to know them and know their projects and, reaching out to them by email. So it's really important. Just, don't be scared. You have to kind of just like push through that. If you're really shy, you just have to go for it, and you'll get a lot of opportunities that way. So that's my first tip for you. And my second tip is get as good as you can with technology, because I can tell you from firsthand experience right now, you're going to get a lot of information thrown at you, but it's so important in this business. And for the most part, you're going to have like an internship or a job after you graduate where you won't be able to avoid technology. You can't avoid technology in this business. So you have to get good at it. And one thing I'm trying to do now is just in my downtime, kind of just mess around and experiment with my DAW and see what I can learn, see what things it can do that I never knew. And just kind of, know your stuff and take what you learn along the way, because there's going to be a lot of information, but it's all relevant and it will come back to haunt you. So it's good to remember it and to practice it and just, experiment with that stuff. And my last tip is to front load your work, which is what everyone was telling me when I was an admitted student. And I was like, what is that? But now I completely understand what that is because I spend a lot of time procrastinating, and procrastination is not your friend. I'm just going to tell you right now. You'll feel so much better if you do your assignments as early as possible and do as much work as you can in the beginning, when it's assigned, even if it's Friday and you're tired from the week, just kind of try to start working. And another good thing about starting your assignments early is that if you have any issues that you need to work through, you can do it early on. For example, there's been a lot of times where it's like 11:30 at night and we have like midnight deadlines for our homework. And all of a sudden I can't upload to the server. And I'm freaking out because I don't have a lot of time and I have to figure out how I'm going to submit my homework. And I just, worked 9 hours on it. So if you start this stuff early, you can work through those issues and you won't be, super stressed out. So yeah, this is something that I'm getting better and better at. But also as another example, over the spring break, we just had like literally 7 assignments due or 8 assignments due for this week. So I just had to do a little bit every day Otherwise, I would have gone insane. But yeah, so it's the weeks are going to get hectic. Everything's going to pile up. So you have to learn how to manage your time and split up your work and, not procrastinate.
I will reiterate front load on Thomas's behalf, and he can probably talk about it later too, but he wanted to include front load as one of his tips. But I mentioned that Marissa had already claimed that one. So, but Thomas also feels clearly strongly about it as well. So take that for what it is. Admitted students, front load your work. All right, Alex, do you want to expand on your tips?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can do it later, but I'd love to. Marissa, good work on front loading. I didn't even think of that. So that's a great tip. It's probably the best tip.
I probably got that from you, Alex.
Maybe, but I'm not sure if I practice it all the time. It's very useful. But yeah, my tips, taking notes, as Kubi kind of mentioned a little bit in the beginning, you're not only just like learning the relevant skills now, the program is really built to future-proof yourself. And probably one of the better ways of future-proofing yourself is taking really detailed notes. And I mentioned on my thing, especially in Tech Lab, Dan's class has a ton of information. Every single week, it's 4 hours of most of the time new information. And if you don't write it down, you will forget by next week. That is pretty much true of all of the 10 of us in the second years who didn't take as detailed of notes, and the next week we just kind of forgot how to do stuff. I can't in every single class, taking notes is probably the best thing. I organize my notes by date and class, and I try to write down not everything, but everything that I didn't think that I knew before. Because in 10 years, when you're trying to remember what that one software was or how to do that one specific function, or even just kind of how to think about these new softwares, you're going to want to look back at these again and figure out. It also, on that organizational front, you're going to want to learn how to organize your files digitally, and Dan is going to teach you how to do that. But that's another thing where you're going to want to take you want to pay a lot of attention to detail on how you want to organize those. That is probably the most important future skill you'll have, and one that you're going to develop a lot as a program, and everyone has different ideas on how you should do it best, but having a system in place is incredibly important. So yeah, that's tip one. Tip two, practicing. Not necessarily, I mean, it very well could extend to your own instrument, whatever you play professionally, but learning all the new technology that you're learning, practicing like new genres that you might need to work on for class is incredibly important, especially for anything that you do not think that you're already like a pro at. I, for one, am not a very strong like folk artist. I don't particularly listen to that genre or like know much about that genre or how to write it. You will probably be asked to write in it one day. I can guarantee that if Kubi is still picking all the films that he gave to us, you will be working on it at some point in the near future. So you're going to want to learn how to write in these genres, and that the easiest way to do that is just go immerse yourself in it outside of class. Like you might talk about it a little bit, about some very particular things or like some very particular sounds or musical ideas, but a lot of that's going to be on you to figure out, because it's a grad program where the faculty are mostly just pushing us in the right direction, but a lot of the work you have to do in your own time, and it's incredibly important to learn how to do that on your own time effectively, and effectively and on time for getting your assignment done. Tip three, I think Thomas and Marissa both kind of touched on it, but speaking up and knowing how to talk is super important. As easily as I can talk to you all via Zoom just about music stuff in general, I'm very bad at talking to other people when trying to sell myself or trying to like promote my own music. This is a skill that is arguably the most important skill you'll ever have. And I've said that 3 times now for I think every single one of my points. But knowing how to talk to other people is a business skill. And if you aren't super comfortable talking with other people or speaking out in general, it's a skill you're going to want to practice during your 2 years while you have the opportunity to like make mistakes and not have too much fallback from it. Everyone kind of understands that, introverts don't necessarily always want to talk, but you should learn how. It's super important, not only just from a business skill, but from a personable skill and just from a professional skill. you don't, you can go find your own work if you know how to talk to other people. You don't need other people to point you in the right direction. And that's infinitely valuable. And I've done that in the program with the video game department. We occasionally will have meetings with the other, like the film and the video game department, just to like introduce ourselves to one another. We have mixers, and those are really awesome, but you don't have to wait for the mixers to go to talk to other people. You don't need permission to go talk to the other departments. I encourage you just to go walk over to their buildings and just go talk with like the faculty and the students who are just wandering around. You'll learn a lot. You will get to meet people early. And through doing that, I got to work on a game that went to E3 this last summer, and that was fantastic. And I managed to I managed to get a list of all the games that were in production and send it to the entire class. And I'm not sure how easily that would have happened if I hadn't just gone over and asked for it. You don't have to wait to make opportunities for yourself. If you can talk to other people, you can just go do it, which is fantastic. So yeah, I think that's all on my end.
Great, thank you. And again, there's all three of these students, they can expand on these during the Q&A portion, and you guys, you guests can ask them anything else you want to know from current students. Lastly, I just want to go over some quick last administrative steps. This is your status page, or this is a screenshot of my status page actually, but this basically what your status page looks like. First of all, there's the link for your status page. This is how probably a lot of you found out you were admitted to begin with. It was in your status page. But some of the next steps, this is where you would go to in your status page, or like tell us your decision, or a couple other things which I will talk about now. So in your status page, first of all, some of you might see this transcript notification. There are a few of you that still owe us either an official transcript, so maybe you just used an unofficial transcript for the admissions process. Now we need an official. Or if you're studied at an international school, more than likely what we need is the transcript evaluation, which is what we use to determine that your degree in whatever country is the same as an American four-year bachelor's degree. And we rely on that evaluation to sort of fulfill that requirement. If you see this transcript notification in your status page, that will technically prevent you from being able to confirm your spot in the program. Now, we understand that given the state of the world right now, and school closures and offices not being open and some documents being harder to access than others, we're going to sort of take this on a case-by-case situation moving forward. But in general, do your due diligence to try to get whatever official document you're missing, and then whatever roadblocks you run into, just bring it to my attention. And like I said, we will cross that proverbial bridge as we get to it. A couple things else to notice on your status page are the forms section. One is the tell us your decision form. Most of you should have this if you haven't told us your decision yet. If you're missing it, it's because, again, of the transcript thing. But again, we can talk about that individually if we need to. For domestic students, if you are seeing this thing about your social security number, that is because you have filled out a FAFSA to get to see what you have available to you in loan money, but you didn't submit your social security number at the time of admission, which is not understandable because it's not a required document, or it's not a required field in the admissions process, but it is a required field for the FAFSA data. So if you have this in your status page, it's because we're missing your social security number, and your FAFSA data is on hold until we get that. So do submit that form. And then lastly, for you international students, I also have emailed you individually to talk a little bit about some of the necessary steps to get your I-20 and some of the completed forms that you'll need to do. But once you're ready to sort of move forward with trying to get your I-20, you will start by completing this I-20 request form. I've just received word from the US government, essentially, the CBIS, that I can issue these digitally now. In the past, these used to be only things that I would have to postal mail to people. But now, given, again, the state of the world, I think they're going to allow me to email a completed I-20 to people. So I'm hoping that means for a quicker turnaround and delivery time once I start turning my attention to I-20s. And again, we can talk about this either in Q&A or individually later if we have any questions. A couple upcoming dates I wanted to run by you. So May 15th is the new deadline to tell us your decision. When you were all admitted in your decision letter, it said April 15th at the time. Obviously, with everything that's going on, we pushed that to May 15th in accordance with many other schools across the country who are doing the same thing. So May 15th right now is the decision to tell us whether or not you're going to attend in the fall. Between May 15th and June 15th, somewhere in that window, will be one of two important things will happen if you end up coming here. You're going to register for your classes, and the online orientation portal where you will sort of orient yourself online throughout the summer goes live, and you'll have opportunities to set up your campus emails, to like learn how the student portal system works. In addition to registering for classes, there will be information about campus jobs will be on the orientation portal. And then there'll also be message boards for you to reach out and connect with fellow music comp students, but also other incoming students from photo or cinema or creative writing, etc. A lot of students in the past have used this sort of orientation portal as a way to meet people, in advance of coming here and potentially find a roommate. I'm sure Alex and Thomas and Marissa can talk a little bit about, some of the steps they went through when relocating to Chicago, and relocation is a part of the orientation portal as well. And then over on the right side, closer we get to the start of fall classes, during the month of August, the School of Graduate Studies office, have always hosted a few optional graduate outings, from like movies in the park to like a trip to the museum. These are strictly optional and social for people who maybe have moved to Chicago a month before classes and they're looking to sort of, get to know the city a little bit before they really dive into classes in September. On Thursday, September 3rd, is a mandatory international student orientation. So just the international students. That is a mandatory event for international students. On Friday, the next day, Friday, September 4th, for all graduate students, international or domestic, we do a graduate welcome day. It's mostly social in nature, but there are some sort of learning outcomes and orientation sort of elements to it. But we've always had a really good turnout from it. And the students have really used that as a way to not only bond with their cohort, but also get to know in advance before, again, the madness of classes beginning, getting to know other students from other programs as well. And then lastly, after Labor Day weekend on Tuesday, classes begin on September 8th. That's a Tuesday. Okay, so this is we're gonna segue into the questions period now. Again, that's my email. If you have questions for me about admissions, about the I-20, whatever, you can shoot them my way. Kubi's email is right there. You can email Kubi with any questions you have about the program. Not that you guys haven't been in contact with Kubi throughout this process. And then if you do have questions specifically for Thomas, Marissa, or Alex,